You know that feeling when plans get canceled and instead of being disappointed, you feel relieved. If a Friday night in pajamas feels better than a Friday night out, welcome. You're about to feel very seen. The moment the plans fall apart, your shoulders drop an inch. Keys hit the counter. The lamp turns warm. The couch finally has your name. The room gets quieter. The air feels softer. You close the door, and it's like the world stops asking questions. And people call that boring, avoidant, missing out. But relief isn't a character flaw. Relief is a signal. Some nervous systems spend everything out there, even in good conversations, even with people you like. It's not hate, it's cost. So when you get home, you're not doing nothing. You're letting the battery rebuild. Home is the only charger that works. You're letting the lights go down. You're choosing a place where you don't have to perform, explain, or keep up. You're not avoiding people. You're protecting something. And if you've ever wondered what that says about you, we're going to go there quietly. That relief you feel when the door closes, it's not you vanishing, it's you coming back online. At home, you don't disappear. You finally return to yourself. Because out there, no matter how kind the people are, there's always a quiet demand. Read the room, match the energy, respond fast enough, smile at the right volume, keep the pace. Even when nobody is being cruel, your body is still working. And then you step inside. The light stays exactly where you left it. The sound is predictable. The air doesn't change its mind every 30 seconds. No one is watching your face for a reaction. No one is taking attendance. Your shoulders soften. Your heartbeat settles into a rhythm that feels like yours again. This is why staying in isn't always a lifestyle choice. Sometimes it's just a nervous system making a practical decision. Quiet lowers the demands, and when the demands drop, your body stabilizes. Not because you're fragile, because you've been carrying more than you noticed. So here's the real question. Why does quiet feel necessary? And there are two very different answers. For some people, staying home is a preference, a natural alignment. They have a lower appetite for noise, for speed, for constant input. Home isn't a hiding place, it's simply where they feel most clear. For others, staying home becomes a refuge, not in a dramatic way, more like the only place their system stops bracing, the only place they can unclench without explaining why. And the thing is, both can look identical from the outside. Same couch, same closed door, same no to plans. But inside, the feeling is different. In the next few minutes, we're going to name that difference quietly, so you can tell whether you're choosing home or whether, quietly, home has started choosing for you. Here's the part most people miss. You can genuinely like people and still have no capacity for them. You can be warm. You can listen well. You can show up, laugh, make eye contact, even carry the conversation. And in the moment, it might feel fine. Sometimes it even feels good. But then it hits later. Not like a dramatic crash. More like the lights inside you start dimming one by one. You get home and the silence isn't just nice. It's necessary because your head feels thick, like your thoughts are moving through syrup. Your body feels heavier than it should. Your mouth doesn't want to shape words anymore. Not because you're angry, not because you're sad, just done. That's the after effect no one sees. From the outside, it looks like you left early or ghosted the group chat. From the inside, it's your system trying to recover from constant input. And the weird part is, you can't always predict it. You can have a wonderful dinner with someone you love and still get home feeling like you ran a marathon. Capacity matters. For some people, social energy doesn't drain in real time. It drains later after you've held yourself together, after you've filtered the noise, after you've managed the subtle pressure to respond, after you've spent hours trying to match a frequency that isn't yours. So when you come home, you're not escaping life. You're returning to the only reset point that works. Because at home, stimulation drops low enough for your mind to stop scanning. Your senses stop bracing. Your nervous system finally gets enough quiet to rebuild the charge. And yes, there may be something about the way you're wired that makes this cost higher. Some people seem to carry a higher baseline level of mental activity all the time, So being on in a room full of other minds isn't neutral. It's heavy. Every voice, every emotion, every noise adds another layer. It stacks like weights invisible until you try to stand up and leave. Which is why the relief is so immediate when you step into your own space. Not because you hate people, because you're trying to keep yourself intact. And if you've ever felt guilty for that, for needing silence after a perfectly good time, hear this. You don't have to earn rest by suffering first. Sometimes you only need space. Not to disappear, just to come back to yourself again. There's another misunderstanding that quietly ruins people. They assume this is about social. But for a lot of people, what drains them isn't the conversation. It's the environment itself. They can be socially fine. They can be emotionally intelligent. They can enjoy depth, humor, connection. They just can't tolerate the volume that comes with it. And here's a simple way to see it. You can message someone online late into the night hours of real talk, real laughter, real presence, and it doesn't destroy you. Because you control the input. You can turn the brightness down. You can lower the sound. You can mute, step away, come back. At any moment, you can close the laptop and the room goes quiet again. But put that same person in a bar for 30 minutes, white lights flashing, bass vibrating through the floor, voices piling on top of voices, the smell of alcohol and heat and perfume, and suddenly they're not introverted. They're overwhelmed. Not because they hate people, because they can't control the stimulus. Some nervous systems simply need less stimulation to feel balanced. That's not a preference you pick. That's how you're wired. Psychology calls this optimal arousal theory. It's simply the idea that people differ in how much stimulation they need to feel comfortable and alert. For some, normal environments are already too loud, too bright, too much. A chronically overstimulated world makes that cost even higher. So home becomes the place where stimulation finally drops low enough to breathe. Not metaphorically, literally. The jaw unclenches. The eyes soften. The body stops scanning for the next hit of noise. Home is where you exhale. And once you see it this way, a lot of shame starts to dissolve because you're not antisocial, you're not fragile, you're not too sensitive in a moral sense. You're someone with a low tolerance for chaos and a high need for steadiness. And that need for steadiness reveals the quiet hunger underneath all of this. It's not just about silence. It's about control. Control. Not control as in dominance, not control as in perfectionism. Control as in, I can finally decide what touches me. Because home isn't just quieter, it's yours. You choose the lighting. You choose the volume. You choose the pace. You choose whether the door opens at all. Warm light instead of the harsh white glare of a supermarket or an office. A soft playlist instead of competing voices. A blanket instead of a room that never stops moving. The lock clicks. The mask drops. And something in your body understands, I'm not on display. This is mine. These are my rules. This is safe. And if you've lived through enough chaos, not always dramatic chaos, sometimes just constant unpredictability control stops being a preference. It becomes survival. Because when the environment is unpredictable, your system stays braced. It scans. It anticipates. It prepares for interruptions, for noise, for demands you didn't agree to. So when you finally get a space where you can regulate the input, where the light stays steady, the sound stays steady, the expectations stay low, your body does what it was trying to do all day. It settles. That control isn't a luxury, it's survival. And I know how easily people mock this. You're so picky. You're too sensitive. You're no fun anymore. But what they're calling picky is often just a nervous system choosing steadiness over strain. It's okay. And once the outside stops pushing on you, something else becomes possible. Not just rest, clarity, because when the light is yours, and the volume is yours, and the door is yours, your mind finally has enough space to do what it was built to do in the first place, go deeper. And once the outside stops pushing on you, your mind doesn't go empty, it opens. Because for a lot of people who love staying at home, quiet isn't boredom, it's bandwidth. Home isn't the absence of activity. It's the presence of preferred activity. Picture it: a small table by the window, a warm drink that actually stays warm, a book that opens without anyone watching how fast you're reading, a favorite film paused on a single scene. Not because you're lonely, because you're listening. You watch a moment, just a moment, and then you stop it. Not to be dramatic, not to make it deep. You stop because something inside you needs space between inputs. And then the thoughts start doing what they do best. They don't move in a straight line. They return, they refine, they reorganize. You notice a look a character gave that you missed the first time. A sentence that hits differently tonight. A detail in the background that feels like a memory you can't fully name. So you rewind. You watch it again. And your mind climbs it like a spiral staircase, circling the same point, but a little higher each time, not louder, clearer. This is what deep processing can feel like. Your brain taking a small piece of life and turning it slowly until it becomes solid enough to hold. And it's not always about art, either. Sometimes it's a conversation from earlier in the week. You replay one line, not to judge yourself, but to understand. You hear what wasn't said. You finally understand why your chest tightened at that moment. Sometimes it's an idea you can't drop, not because you're anxious, but because it matters, and home gives you the space to let it finish forming. In depth psychology, there's a way of looking at this that feels almost tender. The home isn't just a location. It can represent the inner self, a container where the psyche speaks in symbols instead of noise. And even on a more practical level, many people notice this. When the world goes quiet, imagination turns back on. The mind drifts, connects, remembers, creates, not as a performance, but as a private kind of life. That's why the activities at home can look small from the outside. Reading, rewatching a film, making tea, sitting by a window. But inside, it's not small. Psychology calls it autotelic, an activity done purely for its own sake, not to impress anyone, not to prove productivity, just because it feels right in your system. You take a sip of that warm drink, and there's a soft, unexplainable fulfillment in it. Not a rush, not excitement, just the quiet feeling of being aligned with yourself without needing the world's permission to call it a real life. And here's the midpoint most people don't name because it's quiet and it's personal. Two people can do the exact same thing. Same closed door, same couch, same no to plans, and be in two completely different places inside. One is peace, the other is hiding. Sometimes staying home fills you up. You feel clearer, more yourself. The quiet nourishes you. Other times, staying home isn't comfort, it's gravity. Leaving feels too heavy. Not I don't feel like it, more like I can't. And that's not something to judge yourself for. It's something to notice. So here's a gentle question. No diagnosis, no pressure. Are you staying home because it fills you up, or because the world outside feels impossible? And another one. Is it rest, or is this retreat? A door can be a shelter, a boundary that keeps the noise out, a place where your system can finally recover. But if the lock starts to feel like the only thing keeping you steady, if the room gets so quiet it stops feeling spacious, the same door can begin to change meaning. Not because you did it wrong, because comfort, when you're depleted, can turn into a kind of quicksand. So ask yourself just once, right now, what does my nervous system need right now? Maybe the answer is more quiet, more softness, more days that don't demand a performance. Or maybe the answer is one small opening, not a leap, not a reinvention, just a crack of air. Only if you're ready. A text to one safe person, a short walk with no destination, a way of staying safe while still staying in motion, because you can be safe and still growing. And this is where retreat becomes more than a season. Because when retreat lasts too long, something else moves in. Shame. Not loud shame, not the kind that announces itself. The quiet kind. The kind that takes a room that once felt expansive and makes the walls start moving in. And the most unsettling part is how it sounds. At first, it's your own voice. Just a small thought, You should be going out more. You're wasting your life. What's wrong with you? But after a while, the inner voice starts sounding like someone else's voice. A parent, a boss, society wearing your tone. And shame is isolating by design. Because the more you judge yourself, the more you withdraw. And the more you withdraw, the more the judgment feels true. It becomes a closed circuit. But hear this carefully. This loop didn't begin with weakness. It began with adaptation. Your system learned to retreat because something out there was too much, too loud, too fast, too demanding. So you found the place where you could breathe. That wasn't failure, that was intelligence. Shame came later when other people's expectations started leaking into your silence, and that's why fixing yourself is not the first step here. The first step is removing blame. Healing starts by removing blame, not by forcing yourself into rooms you can't tolerate, not by proving you're normal, by telling the truth softly. I'm allowed to want to stay home, not as a confession, as a permission. Because the moment you stop treating your need for quiet like a moral defect, the room stops shrinking. The clock still ticks. The walls might still feel close, your stomach might still hold some weight, but the lock loosens. And that loosening is the beginning of a different kind of movement, one that doesn't come from shame, but from choice. So what does balance look like if you're not trying to become an extrovert? It's not forcing yourself into louder rooms. It's not proving anything. Healthy balance is small and intentional. A quiet walk with no destination. One honest conversation with one safe person. 10 minutes of sunlight on your hands, just enough to remind your body that the world isn't only noise. This is what changes when blame lifts. The room stops being a locked room. The door becomes yours again. You don't have to kick it open. You don't have to run. You open it a few inches. Morning light slides across the floor. Air comes in cool, clean. You step onto the porch. Not to perform, not to be social. Just to be in contact with life at a volume you can tolerate. And then when you've had enough sun, you come back inside. Not out of fear, out of autonomy, because you've recharged, because the base did its job. It becomes a base, not a boundary. Home is not a bunker, it's a starting point. You don't have to choose between solitude and life. You can have both if you stop turning either one into a verdict. And maybe this is the simplest truth we can leave you with. You are quieter than the world expects, and fuller than it looks from the outside. Not wrong, just honest. If this felt like a shelter for you, if it gave you even one clean exhale, you're welcome to stay. Leaving a like or a quiet comment helps this space keep existing for people who don't live well in the noise.